Now, speaking of lean, gotta get that lean. All right, so welcome back to another review. So this year's Apple's September presentation yielded the usual suspects, as well as a few small surprises for the world to enjoy. This does include us audio enthusiasts that want to know what comes next after the Apple Airpods Pro Gen 2's surprisingly good tuning and sound. Well, here they are. The latest Apple Airpods Gen 4 and AirPods Gen 4 with active noise cancellation built in. As an individual with experience using Apple's past audio products and an audio reviewer, these two pairs of headphones raised a lot of questions for me. How will these differ from each other? From the AirPods Pro 2, from the AirPods Gen 3, which I actually grew to dislike, and the AirPods Gen 2, the world's fan favorite earphone until the AirPods Pro came along. In today's video, I'm here to answer those questions and help you determine whether the AirPods Gen 4 are a good fit for you. Now let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. So starting out with the contents, this part's gonna be ridiculously quick. Regardless of which version you opt for, you get the box itself. You can differentiate between the regular 4s and the ANC 4s by looking at the top of the boxes. The ANC version will clearly say AirPods Active Noise Cancellation in small silver text, while the regular 4s will just say AirPods. Now you peel off the two paper tabs, slide open the box, and you'll see this little bit of paperwork which also includes the pairing instructions and controls. You'll notice that the ANC 4s will feature a more extensive list of controls to show you how to use the active noise cancellation features. More on that later. Now put that aside, you'll find the AirPods and their case wrapped around this bit of plastic. Take that off, open the lid, and start the pairing process. Now let's discuss the build quality of these and some features. I will say there are minute differences between the regular 4s and the ANC 4s. The case on the ANC AirPods does feel a tad bit heavier than the regular's case, though it's not a massive difference. If you have both of these in hand, you'll feel the difference, but otherwise it won't affect your daily usage. Other than the weight, the two of them feel exactly the same in terms of quality. Now, if you notice, visually speaking, the only difference between the regular 4s and the ANC 4s are that the bottom of the case of the ANC 4s does have those speakers here for Find My in case they get lost. Now, as for the AirPods themselves, they don't look any different from each other. It's hard to differentiate which have ANC and which don't because they look exactly the same. I mean, you'd think it'd be the opposite situation where the cases might be the same, the units themselves, the earphones would look a little different because ANC, non-ANC, but nope, they look exactly the same. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. The reason you're spending $50 more on these as opposed to these is because these have active noise cancellation. What's more is the ANC 4 case having the Find My feature could be something that a lot of people really appreciate, especially if you live somewhere that can take advantage of public transportation like, New York City or Chicago, or if you happen to travel a lot, that can also come in handy. Now the ANC 4s do have 4 different modes that you can choose from. They have off, which in theory turns them into regular 4s, more on that later. Transparency mode to allow all sound in as much as possible. Adaptive, which only allows certain sounds in. Those that kind of help blend the track and the background noise together to create kind of like a comfortable, lively environment, like you are the main character scenario, and you got your own background music type deal. And last of all, you got noise cancellation, which does its best to just block all outside noise. So let's go ahead and shred these down and talk about them. So transparency mode as opposed to off, right? When using transparency mode, more background noise comes in as opposed to having them off. It is a difference. You do feel it because with them off or with the regular 4s, there's still something blocking your ears. There's still going to be a little bit of something that's gonna slightly muffle the outside noises and your own voice when you try to speak. Now, when you integrate transparency mode into that, it eliminates the vast majority of this, and it really does make a difference. Now, the background sounds themselves on the AirPod 4s do tend to have like a slightly brighter tuning as opposed to real life, just slightly kind of like a nostalgic, echo-ish kind of feel to it. Nothing crazy. I mean, you can still understand everything perfectly well, but it's not a one-to-one as opposed to not having them on. It does help a lot though. Now you switch over to adaptive mode where only part of that gets canceled. Turning this mode on cancels the vast majority of background noise. The only things that really come in are the occasional, like the child scream or a high-pitched ding from a PA system, the variable background noises. But the constant background noises are severely trimmed down. So if you happen to have music playing, the constant background noises will not pop out whatsoever, unless you turn down the volume from your music because it's intentional. You really want to hear that. Then switch over to noise cancellation. Same thing here. The ANC takes it one more step and eliminates 95% of the background noises altogether. Start playing music and it's more like 98% gone. Variable noises get even more canceled out, yes, but they never quite get fully deleted either. Now let's go ahead and listen to a couple of mic tests here to compare the two units. Check it out. All right, so this is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 without ANC, the base model, testing 1, 2, 3. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 with active noise cancellation. So this is the premium version of the Apple AirPods Gen 4. 1, 2, 3. Right, so this is a recording of the AirPods ANC 4s. This is with absolutely no ANC enabled in a very public mall setting. This is what the mic sounds like. 1, 2, 3. A, B, C. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 with ANC with transparency mode enabled in a public mall setting. 1, 2, 3. This is a recording with the Apple AirPods Gen 4 ANC, this time with adaptive noise. So on, not fully noise canceled out in a public setting in a very crowded lab. 1, 2. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 in a very public setting with full noise cancellation on. Testing 1, 2, 3. Public now. As for range, I'm able to leave my phone at my desk or in the living room and then just go around the rest of my apartment, in between a couple of walls, do the laundry, wash the dishes, take the trash out, to the front door, not 3 flights down the stairs. And I have experienced absolutely no blipping, no interruptions to the signal, absolutely no problems whatsoever. And I really appreciate that. Now let's talk about the battery. I imagine this is quite important to a lot of us that happen to use them for maybe work calls, or maybe, you're traveling and you don't want to think about, I gotta take them off for a couple of minutes or half an hour to charge them. Anyway, I digress. Now, regarding battery, the ANC 4s come with a wireless charging case, while the regular 4s cannot charge wirelessly. That's right, if you got your Apple Watch charger, one of those magnetic clasp chargers, you literally just, the back, you're done. As opposed to the 4s that thankfully are USB-C, but you gotta plug them in via USB-C. There is no alternative here. Now, both of these feature a case that extends charge time up to 30 hours in total, according to Apple. Both models should last up to 5 hours on a single charge if you're not using ANC, and if you do decide to use ANC, it should be about 4 hours. Now, from my personal experience, day-to-day use, the ANC4s will get you closer to 3 hours of real-world use on a single charge before you have to put them back in the case. If you use them without ANC, that's probably closer to 3.5, maybe getting to the 4-hour mark. Now let's talk about the comfort aspect, because I think this is a pretty important part of wearing earbuds and having like a handy helper, throughout your day whenever you put your trust into something like this. So here's the thing, these are earphones, as opposed to, like, say, the AirPods Pro or IEMs that are earbuds. The difference is there's nothing going inside your ears. They go right outside your ear and they sit there on the cradle of your ear. Now, I was actually never really a fan of the Apple AirPods Gen 2 or the EarPods, which are the wired counterparts, or the earphones from way back in the day with the silver mesh up in the front. They never really sat properly in my ears. They always just fell off. They always just slid off. Like, I never got to enjoy using them. Thanks to this new design, however, I can actually wear these all day. They actually disappear on my ears, like I'd say 90 to 95% of the way. They're not completely gone, but for the most part, they're gone. I just don't care that I have them on. I can wear them on for hours and hours on end. And the best part of all is they don't slide off. They never ever fall off. It's amazing. Like, thank you for redesigning the shape of the pod so that it fits my ears now. Then again, everybody's ears are different. Maybe your case is the exact opposite. You thought the twos were, God's creation, and then these come along and they just bust out of your ears because your ears are too small or something. I don't know, but they fit my ears pretty well, so I'm pretty happy with that. Either way, regardless of which of these two you go with, they're going to be exactly the same in terms of comfort, in terms of the build, weight, everything. You will not feel a difference. As for amplification here, regardless of which you go with, on my iPhone 13 Pro, I run both of these at 9 out of 16 for most songs, maybe 10 out of 16 for that very quiet song, or for maybe like a TV show, bump it up to 11. Funny enough, the sound signature on the ANC4s actually changes depending on what mode you have them set to, and more of that in the sound section. Before we begin, this review / comparison will first break down which ANC mode has the best sound signature according to my ears and what I deem to be a good balance between neutral and entertaining. After that, we will discuss the sound signature of the regular 4s and ANC 4s with no active noise cancellation on. No EQ will be used in this review whatsoever. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. So starting off with the ANC 4s here, the off mode is the cleanest. It has the best textured bass guitars. Surprisingly enough, the ANC 4s don't sound exactly the same as the regular 4s, even when set to off mode in the ANC settings. For some reason, the ANC 4s set to off sound just a slight bit leaner in timbre than the regular 4s. I'd say, not enough to push you in one direction versus the other, but it was noticeable when you have them side by side. And they're supposed to be the same thing, considering you turn off ANC here, but it's not quite the same thing. Now, speaking of lean, gotta get that lean. In transparency mode, they actually sound their leanest, especially in the upper mid section. But that being said, it does make a little bit of sense, because in a way the sound is sort of kind of like doing this, kind of letting you listen to what else is happening in the background, as opposed to blocking it and saying, hey, me first. Now switch over to adaptive mode. It has the smoothest cymbals. It sounds less peaky, less sharp. It just brings it down a little bit, just shaves something right off the top, and for me has the best presentation of cymbals and hi-hats out of all 4 of these. Now switch over to noise cancellation, where you're blocking out everything but the sound. It's similar to the adaptive mode, but it also had a bit of that like deprivation tank effect that you get from earbuds or some devices that have active noise cancellation, where you feel the pressure, impacting your ears. I felt that a little bit with noise cancellation, not a big fan. Now let's go ahead and check out the bass here. Bass is elevated, but it is enjoyable. I never felt bass overstepped nor had too much warmth. The mid bass has a little extra bit of kick to it, definitely has enough power to push through EDM tracks and those with like a hefty kick drum presence. Very enjoyable there. Sub bass is actually pretty reasonable for an open design earphone like this. It's genuinely impressive how they managed to create a powerful yet clean bass response in a driver as tiny and complex as this little thing. Now, bass guitars are quite thick and girthy. They do come across as slightly too thick if they were an audio enthusiast headphone meant to be used at a desk. If this were like a reference headphone, hey, you can mix and master with these, that'd be too thick. Now, given the mobility and portable nature of these, I think that extra bit of heft in the low end is necessary if you plan on using them in noisy areas, right? Now, couple that with AMC, and it won't be a problem at all. Bass extension is quite good, it really is, but it's nothing excellent either. I wasn't wowed and blown away by what these can do. I would say I was impressed by what I heard in terms of bass extension, but I was not blown away either. Now let's talk about the mids here. Overall, vocals and instruments in the mid section felt a bit lean, no matter what setting you chose for ANC. Vocals across the board can come across a tad bit shouty, especially higher pitched vocals, specifically when a voice is meant to be, closer to the listener. That dynamism that occurs is a bit more apparent on these than on a reference driver. Now, cellos actually come across really well with these. Yes, it still leans a little bit towards the nasal side of things, but it doesn't skew too far either. And in doing this, it actually brings forth a lot of the cello's details, like the pizzicato, the plucking on the strings. It also brings forth a lot of the cellist grabbing the bow and beginning to play in arco mode. You can hear it kind of grazing the string, like, going like, got it. Hairs landing on the strings, the friction where they start a note, and all of this. It went for the extra bright, extra pizzazz timbre choice. Now, generally speaking, brass instruments, violins, stuff like that, I had no complaints about these whatsoever. I wasn't impressed, like, my God, amazing detail, the this, the that, nothing crazy either, but I wasn't disappointed either. It was like, hey, it's there. It could have been gone. It could have done, the consumer grade thing and just be gone, but it wasn't gone. It was there and it was satisfactory. So I'm glad Apple took that into consideration here. Now let's go ahead and talk about the high end. There's actually plenty of treble presence here. Now, it's not flat across the board, like every part of the treble is extended and peaky and spiky. No, it's not like that either. A good amount of regions in the treble will want to be the main article with the AirPods 4. For the most part, I wouldn't call these sibilant really. They're not. In most cases, they're really not sibilant. But the timbre that's spread across the mids and highs definitely does give it a brightish tilt. These are absolutely not dark like the Airpods Gen 2s. So certain parts of the high end tend to have a bit of a metallic sound to it, showing off quite well within cymbals and a little bit in the consonant region. So here's an example, City to City by Zomboy and Bell Humble. That entire high end was closer than reference, quite a bit metallic, which overall is I think is a net positive in this case, though I would have liked it to be a touch less bright, just touch. Now what I do want to emphasize is this brightish tilt doesn't just apply to the timbre of the instruments themselves, it also has to do with their positioning. It's like the mids and certain highs have their own stage to stand on, right around the middle, close to you, and I'm going to do this from your perspective. So right around the middle, then you got the bass, which is the layer right down here, just spread out like butter all across the bottom. And then the cymbals and hi-hats, certain parts of the high end have their own stage right here, much closer to you, not huge, not super extended, not crazy sharp, but more up in your face, as opposed to the rest of the instruments that lie here, and the bass that's just all around the bottom. I would say they sit probably about 2 to 3 steps forward as opposed to the rest of the instruments. I would say they sit about 2 to 3 steps forward as opposed to the rest of the instruments. So if you are someone that does enjoy like cymbals and hi-hats in like electronic music or metal music, rock music, something along those lines, you know, high-end percussion, I think you're really gonna enjoy that little quirk of this sound signature. Now let's go ahead and talk about the sound stage and imaging of these. The size of the sound stage is on the tiny side, you know, given how small the drivers actually are. But for how small they are, they have plenty of width and sound stage to play with. I'd say the sound stage extends up to about here without spatialized stereo being on. Now, here is where things get interesting. Imaging, I mean, wow, they stepped up their game considerably. I realize it's partially due to the digital sound processing, the DSP going on in here, as opposed to a traditional wired headphone that, you know, just it does nothing with it but the driver playing and the acoustics of the cup affecting the sound of the driver. But that doesn't change the fact that they do have DSP in here. So we're going back to that same example, City to City by Zomboy and Bell Humble. At the beginning, there's a sound that begins to the left, then goes to your right ear, then back to the left, then to the center, then back to the left, and then goes to the right. Now, these may not have been, you know, HD 800S accurate or specific, but they got really dang close to that level of definition and separation within imaging for wireless earphones that are at the very least worth $140. Like, come on, it's $140, you get that level of imaging and separation and detail. It's not bad. So let's reach our conclusion here and talk our final verdict. Would I recommend the new AirPods 4 to somebody? Yes, I actually would, for a handful of reasons. Timbre aside, these headphones never really fell flat in one particular category. No pun intended. They're a strong everyday companion for those segments in your day when you just, you know, you want some music, some silence along the way. I wouldn't really opt for one specific music genre with these. I think they can be used for all genres without issue, so long as your mixes aren't mastered like incredibly bright. Not to mention, let's just say you went out there and picked out the new iPhone 15 Pro or 16s with USB-C charging, and now you don't want to carry anything but a USB-C cable. Well, now you can update your AirPods Gen 2 that ran on Lightning and run a full USB-C setup. Win-win. Well, except for your watch, but you know, come on. But would I recommend the Apple AirPods Gen 4 over the Apple AirPods Pro 2? Well, that's something we are going to answer in the next video. Anyways, thanks for watching this one. I really hope this helped your purchasing decision, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, ciao.